What's going on, people? Georgio Savvides here, founder of the Hip Hop Orchestra, as well as the host of the Hip Hop Orchestra Presents podcast. And I got a really exciting announcement to finally make with everyone, is that we have our very first official sponsor for the podcast. Now, they are an amazing company called Eldon's Vault, who are extremely dedicated in bringing you the very best in officially licensed merchandise from pop culture. And when I mean the very best, I mean the very best. They provide things like keyrings, caps, t-shirts, to Funko Pops, to statues from all over, such as DC, Marvel, Disney, The Mandalorian, Harry Potter, music artists from all over the place, and they are ridiculously good. I've got a couple of things to show you on offer at the moment. This trust me, their stuff is amazing. So, t-shirts, like I mentioned, like the one I'm wearing right now. It's got Rocky right here, which I absolutely love. Or, like I said, also got Funko Pops as well, 3.75 inches and 10 inches. I've got a couple of 10 inches right here for you. I've got Post Malone right here, and I've also got Biggie right here, who I absolutely love. These are so sick. Eldon's Vault, trust me, they are amazing. Now, I'm going to leave the link below in the video right here, and also in the description below as well in all future videos from the podcast. But trust me, Eldon's Vault are amazing. Website is www.eldonsvault.co.uk. Get in touch with them now and start buying ASAP. But also, before I forget as well, I just want to say the biggest thank you to Eldon's Vault for sponsoring the podcast. It means the absolute world to me. Thank you. And trust me, get in touch with them right now. And I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And peace. People, welcome to a brand new episode of the Hip Hop Orchestra Presents, and we're joined by an amazing guest today, music director and youth development consultant Arfa Butt. How are you? You okay?
Hi, how are you doing? You okay?
Not too bad, thank you. How are you?
I'm happy. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear. We're just chatting, weren't we, about before the podcast, how busy you've been recently as well.
I think people have spent, or we've spent so much time talking about doing stuff. I think with the time off, it's really kind of made you evaluate where you are and what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then now that people are going back into work, there's so much going on. You're really trying to make time for everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, this past few weeks have been quite busy, and it's nice.
Yeah.
I had time off.
Yeah. Brilliant.
So,
were you kind of still going in? I forgot to ask actually before the podcast. Actually, were you still going into work for the jobs that you had, or you weren't all from home?
So for the past year and a half, a lot of the work that I've been doing has been at home, which has been fantastic.
Oh, brilliant.
But I think I miss the interaction.
Yeah.
Being around people, you miss the energy. Even simple things like just hugging people when you see them.
Yeah, same.
Obviously, we're not hugging people, but yeah, it makes such a big difference to be in that space.
I mean, how have you been finding Zoom as well, using Zoom? I know a lot of people are kind of, they either love it or hate it. I mean, how have you been finding it so far?
Honestly, anything that I can avoid on Zoom.
Yeah.
And then the thing is, you start off in the morning with one meeting, you have like half an hour off, and all you're doing is sitting on your backside. You can't do any exercise, you can't do anything, so you're not doing anything. I think it's great to have Zoom. It's great to be able to communicate, but I'd prefer, if possible, if we can go out into the park, or I can meet you somewhere, it's an open space. I'd prefer to do that.
Of course.
And I think a lot of people are just scared, and unsure of what is, suitable or not, especially if you're looking after vulnerable people as well. You're around vulnerable people.
Of course. Are you based near any parks yourself as well? They can go out to have a little walk.
Everything near me. Everything.
Perfect.
Have you heard of Epping Forest?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
It's about 15-20 minutes away from there, and Wanted Park. So yeah, I'm extremely lucky that I have those spaces around me. But many people don't. They don't even have a garden, so I think it's been quite challenging just getting some fresh air in the first place.
Of course, because if I didn't have a garden, I don't know what I would do. I'd actually go mad. I love that. I love that fresh air.
Question. Everybody's grow vegetables. Don't know how to, but yeah, I've got to.
Have you? How's that been going so far?
You know what? I grow vegetables. I'm just like, so this year I've had courgettes, tomatoes, peppers, three
Oh
different types of peas.
wow.
What else? Pumpkins, coriander.
Oh,
So I've been doing it for a few years, but it's just for many people because they've got so much time. They've wanted to grow it. It's just it hasn't necessarily worked out
it
properly.
hasn't at all. A lot of people kind of find those things kind of relaxing, don't they, in terms of gardening or planting vegetables. How do you find it? Do you find it relaxing as well?
Um, I spend a lot of time outside, especially when it's raining. So for
Mm.
me, it's the perfect time to switch off. But for a lot of people, they've never been alone or they don't know how to spend time by themselves. And I think, especially that when you've always got music on or you've always got noise around you or you're always around people, when do you know when it's the right time to switch off? Lots of people have been forced into being by themselves. And I think we have to consider, how challenging it must be for them.
Hmm.
And even if it is just a text or a phone call or, whatever, if you know somebody like that, I would definitely recommend just picking up the phone and just checking in on them, because sometimes people don't say, actually, you know what, it's actually too much for me, or
Yeah.
I'm struggling. So yeah, I think it's great to have that space and time to do so, but for many, it's not that easy or easily done.
Of course not, because that's I've mentioned before in the podcast a few times actually, where I really feel like podcast is like therapy in a way, because you're talking to people, just finding out things how they've been doing as well, and just catching up, and especially in the industry that we're in, with the music industry, as we both know that basically all our work, basically at least 90% of it has gone away now, the performances and the rest of it. So even just talking to people that we know are in the industry, just to catch up, have a little conversation, instead of doing is, feel it's been really beneficial and crucial.
And
Um,
something, financially, people have been struggling so much
mm,
and have been so embarrassed to say, I am struggling or I can't afford to make ends meet. But because they know that most of their peers or, the people in the industry are also maybe going through something similar. And that safe space doesn't necessarily exist either.
mm,
Who's the right person to ask for help, or how can you ask for help? These conversations haven't necessarily happened
I
in
haven't
our
at all. Yeah.
amongst our friends. They have, but on a larger scale, nobody's actually said, "Oh, these are the things that you should know." Everyone's bombarded you with information, but it's nothing specific.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, there's lots of people in a similar situation, I think.
It really, and it's so true what you said about how difficult it is to people to actually open up about these kind of personal problems that they might be going through. Because, like you said, there's so much work has gone missing now, hasn't it? So much work, and
People have
it's
home. They've never lived with their parents since,
yeah,
18, 19 years old, and all of a sudden it's like, actually, I can't afford to live in London. You
yeah.
know, what do I do? I
It's
know I
really
actually have a friend, her and her sister just took out a mortgage, and this was 4 months before, or I guess late last year, and both of them have lost their jobs.
wow.
And the first thing she said to me, she was like, "Is there anything freelance that that I can jump in on, even if it's for a few months?" What do you do in a situation like that?
I know.
You can't even ask your parents for help because they're probably in a similar position too.
Of course. I mean, it's like another story similar actually, where a friend of my brother's actually, he opened up a gym literally at the start of the year, or I think December time, January time, literally opened up a brand new gym, spent X amount on obviously opening up, getting new equipment, the rest of it. And then suddenly it's
You
gone.
can't open. You
You
haven't had
can't
any.
open it. It's like it's all gone. I think you've worked so hard for so long to save up and invest in a brand new business, and it's suddenly just been taken away from you. I mean, that for me is such a heartbreaking thing to do, not just for him, but for everyone as well. And
But do you realize that people have other skills?
they
They've not
do.
identified them as skills that can, that can make them money, or they can go and work it within, those industries. And I think this is where, so a lot of the work that I do with young people is around coaching and identifying skills that may be beneficial for them later. And it's a transferable skills that you can apply anywhere. But there are adults within the creative industry who are struggling to find the right role for them, or even applying for jobs because they don't think that they can do them. That's something that we should be talking about, most definitely,
100%.
within this workplace. Like they're talking about reskilling and going into other industries. Why are we not talking about the skills we already have?
Exactly. And that's something that I hugely admire about your work is, of obviously through your experience of doing a million amazing things. That's one of the things I hugely admire you for, is working with the youth and making sure that their well-being and health is crucially doing really, really well. And how? we'll also be mentioning this before the podcast as well, but how have you been as well during this whole period? I know you've been okay, but how have you been coping so far?
So in March, I moved my mum in with me, and my mum is quite vulnerable. I switched off everything. I came off social media. My time on my phone was very limited because I wanted to make sure I was spending enough time looking after her. And I'm 41. This is the first time I realized so many different things about my mum. This is the first time we've actually spent time together. But personally, I think we all need time out.
Mm-hmm.
However that may be, whether it's in nature, whether it's away from home, whether it's with your loved ones. But we need time out to reflect on where we are in the present rather than what's going to happen next or where we've come from. And I think for a long time, people, especially within this industry that we're in, people spend so much time around having a good time than actually thinking about or worrying about, I've got other things going on in my life that I need to get support for, whether it's therapy. And one of the, I guess, most common conversations is around therapy.
Mm-hmm.
So many people you meet and they're going through something and they think it's nothing major. I don't need to talk to anybody. But sometimes listening to somebody can make such a big difference in their life. We don't necessarily understand it, but just being heard is so, so important. And we don't have a culture of doing that.
We
And
don't.
I think this time off for me was really giving my mom that opportunity to speak, but also be heard. And now I think moving forward, she went home and she was like, I've had enough of you. I'm going home now. Go do what you have to do. But it made me really realize that we need to be applying that to everything that we do, whether it's our loved ones, whether it's the workspace, anybody we meet on a regular basis, elderly people, even elderly people in the street. You may be the only person that they talk to or say hello to. Do we make the effort to actually just check in on people and say, hey, how are you? I hope you're well. Is there anything you need help with? Just even if it is just the once a week, but just making sure that we do that with each other. I think if this time doesn't, make us realize how much we all need each other, then I don't think anything else will, because none of us have been through anything like this, anything as challenging as what the time that we're going through now.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more because I've always felt like I've been the person to do that with everyone, whether it's friends, family, even at work as well. Because as you know, I'm a teacher as well. So just taking that extra kind of time, a couple of minutes of the day just to see how they're getting on,
How was
really
it for
make
you? How was it for you going back to work?
it was fine. Like it was obviously it was crazy because of the mad transition going from say being in school to home, back to school again. So the workload was very stressful for me, which not people do know about. Also, I've mentioned to a lot of people, but I mean, being a teacher, as you know already, you obviously work with the youth already. Being a teacher is very stressful as it is, but going through such a crazy period, it did have a mental effect on me. I can't lie. I can't say yeah, it was all rainbows and flowers. But
After yourself.
how do I look
Liz,
after myself?
how did you look after yourself?
You know what? Like you
I'm
said,
actually asking you this question.
that's all right. I was asking the same
Tell me
thing, but you know what? I like to go. Okay, I like to keep fit and healthy, so I go for long walks. I work out a few times a week. I mix up with yoga as well. I just, if I feel like I physically can't do anything, I just take a step back. I only do the things that I need to. So if I need to go to work, obviously I do that and do a good job and come back. I won't push myself any further because a few years ago when I did a TED talk, during that period, I overworked myself until I was seriously ill, and I don't want to repeat that mistake again. And I
How,
know that
how did you know you were overworked?
I got pneumonia in the end, actually, from the stress of doing too many things at once, of being a teacher, plus planning for the talk, plus prepping for this, that, and the other. The workload seriously made me ill, and I love keeping busy, as a lot of us do. But I've just learned to, if I can't do something, I just say no. I have learned to say no when I need to.
That's been difficult for you.
It was because I love to be the person to help other people out and make them feel good as well. But I've just slowly learned to say no to things and not feel bad.
Can I ask how you learn how to set boundaries? Because
Yeah,
when we're growing up, nobody tells us how to set
no
boundaries.
one does. I had
Nobody says.
to, no one tells us. But I had to learn the hard way. It took me to get ill to really think, okay, your health is more important than most things in life. So look after yourself, and then you can look after yourself and other people as well. So learn to say no. The first time you say no to things, it's always going to be the hardest thing, no matter
It
what you
hurts,
do. Yeah,
yeah.
it does. Like, no, my heart, no. Like, even today, I had to turn down some work because it was getting too much. But it's just that first hurdle of actually first saying no to things, and then actually saying as well during that sort of same time as well. I'll actually learn to not say yes straight away to things, because that's what a lot of people do. Like, say, "Oh, if they want to work with me," like, "Yes, I'll do that." Then you got to like say, "No, wait a
Let me
second.
think about this
Let me
first.
think about it first. Let me look into it, then do it." Because you'll help people don't realize that, especially if they're young coming up, they think they need to take everything on board, and they shouldn't. They should like obviously do as much as they can to start off with, maybe, but then once you get to that level, then you can start saying no to things, and be brave enough to say no to things. Because, like you said, people aren't taught these sort of things. They're not taught, and you shouldn't be scared to say no when you physically can't do anything anymore. And how did you learn to?
Do you think it's also about identifying what isn't for you?
Yeah,
Because when somebody offers you something, you assume that, oh my God, they've offered me something. I must be great at what I'm doing. That's why they
yeah,
asked me.
yeah.
That's not always the case.
It's
So
not.
it's not. And I think it's finding, I think for me personally, so I'll give you an example. I sucked at my GCSEs.
So did I.
And many people going to university and then going into the
Mhm.
work within the industry was, I guess, the focus. For me, it wasn't. When I turned 16, um, I knew I wanted to work in the music industry. That was it. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I wanted to do everything. And I did a summer radio broadcasting course, and I met this woman, and she just changed my life. She was just really wise, so loving and kind. And I think we all need somebody like that who
Mhm.
believes in you. And she just kind of really took me under her wing and asked me what I wanted to do. And she was like, "There's no reason why you can't try everything." So back in the day, you could, you didn't have to worry about risk assessment, or you did, but there was a work experience was available easily than it is now, more easily than it is now. And I remember every single music or hip hop event that was going on, I'd call them. I was like, I want to come and do some stuff with you. Can I help out? That was my work experience. So you'd call people, you turn up, spend the day in an event, meet everybody. And
Yeah.
I always say this. I said, I think one of the things that's missing now is communication skills. We hide behind
Mhm.
our screens or our phones,
Oh, we
and
really
we send
do.
somebody a text message, but in person, you can't even make eye contact. You're not even looking at me when you're talking to me. You have no idea what you're asking me. And I think that's one of the things I always talk to young people about, being confident within yourself. So when you meet somebody in person, if they ask you who you are or what you're about, you're confident enough and comfortable enough to say, this is who I am, this is what I want to do. I've heard a lot about you, or I love your work. How can I come and work with you? Or what can I learn from you? And for me, that's what I did for a long time. And then I tried, so I don't know whether this is part of the question, but I tried everything. So I did radio broadcasting, I did production, I did presenting, I did sound engineering for a year. I wanted to make beats. So I
Yeah.
was like, if Elliot can do it, there's absolutely no reason why I can't. So for a year I did sound engineering, and then it was like, okay, what's next? What else can I learn? And I'm very hands-on. So for me,
Yeah,
it's
me
really
too.
about where can I go? What can I learn in person rather than read books? I love reading, but it has to be, I think there's that, it's that energy rush for me. It's like when I'm there in the studio, when I'm making something, and just the effect that it has on me and my heart, I think is really important. And then when I turned 19, um, I got offered a job at MTV, and it was a phone call. We've launched MTV Base. We want somebody to come and manage it with us. Would you be interested?
It's
And
amazing.
I remember sitting there, and it's somebody who I met through the radio station. So, it was somebody who I had a relationship with, but he was like, I think you'd be a great person for me to work with because you have knowledge of the music industry, but also as a person, I think you'd be great. So I sat down and I said to my dad, I was like, Dad, you know what? I've been offered this job, but I don't have the qualifications. Again, I was offered the job, I was offered an
Yeah.
interview, but I was sitting there thinking about qualification because that's the culture that we've created. Um, I went in, I was the only person interviewed for the role. My interview was, what kind of music do you listen to? Do you think you'd be able to manage a channel? Do you have relationships with the industry? Okay, we'll let you know. I got off the train in 45 minutes, I had the job. And
Wow.
that was it. when I talk about it now, me as a young person then, I had to just sit back and think, oh my God, you know what? Sometimes opportunities come to you because you work hard enough for them, or they come to you because you're a good person.
Mm.
And either or, whatever the case may be, I'm in this position. There's a lot that I don't know. What can I learn and how can I learn it? Um, it wasn't easy. It definitely wasn't easy, but they were some of the best years of my life as a young person in the industry, hands on. Everything and anyone that I met, I learned something from. And I think no matter how old you are, whatever industry you're in, you have to be. And now, at this age, I learned so much from young people.
Mm-hmm.
They have their ears on the ground. They're the ones who know about the new music and the new artists. We're not even encouraging them to speak out about it, or we're not involving them, or they're not sitting on at that level with the industry people to be able to advise. And I think that culture change, a shift needs to happen now.
For
It's
sure.
taken a long time, but it just hasn't happened yet. But yeah, it has to happen.
It
I
really
don't know.
does.
Hey, where how did I get here?
but, you,
Yeah.
but you know what I love is just people just talking like that. It's not a rigid podcast. I love to people just go off and talk about whatever they feel like. And it's so true what you said about the communication skills nowadays, where people don't have those skills. I mean, I go to, or not as much anymore, obviously, but every time I go to like a coffee shop or a restaurant, everyone's like this on the phone, like this, doing this. Thinking, especially with people like dating as well, like you see these couples going out and they're both like doing this.
Everybody's on their
And
phone.
like,
Why?
what the fuck are you doing there? Come on. Are you like WhatsApp each other at a date? But it's so cheap about communication skills. And I'm very much like you as well. I'm very much like you, where I'm very hands-on. And as much as I love to read and study that way, I'm very hands-on, and I learn by being thrown into the deep end. And that's how I feel I've just learned and got so far in life, is through hard work and networking and making sure I can
Do you
learn from
think
different
networking
people.
works?
What's that? Sorry?
Do you think networking works?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it could be if people don't know
In
who you
every
are.
environment, or depending on where you are?
I think it's a bit of, but in fact, I think every industry, I think, kind of needs some kind of networking, because if people don't know who you are, you could be the best candidate, say, for being a CEO, for instance, of a major company. But if they don't know who you are, then
How do you walk in? When you introduce yourself, who do you say you are? How do you walk in? Give me a scenario.
okay, so for instance, if I'm okay, so going to meet you, say for
I'm
instance,
interviewing you now.
okay, it's your podcast now.
About time, come on.
Okay, so I just walk in and say hello to meet you. My name is George. And say for instance, it depends on the situation actually. So if you made a meeting already,
Mhm.
saying I've organised a meeting with you in good time, and I know the person I'm going to meet, I just say hi, Miss Butt. Is that you? Love to meet you. My name is Georgio, MD of the Hip Hop Orchestra, and so forth, and take it from there. And just sit down and then
If it's
take
a
it from.
new person, how would you introduce yourself to a new person? You've
Uh,
seen somebody, you know of them,
yeah,
never met them before, they don't know who
yeah.
you are. You,
Okay.
you're
If
walking up
I
to them, how would you do that?
if I if I make a last person, I say, "Oh, excuse me, Mr. or Mrs. Who that be?" I say, "Sorry to disturb you. My name's Giorgio.
How would you
I'm."
apologize?
No, I say, "Sorry for disturbing you." Like they might be talking to
You're in
someone.
disturbing them. Why are you apologizing?
Okay. If I'm
Go
not
back, go
disturbing,
back.
if I go back there, let's rewind. Okay, so this is brilliant. It's a lesson. So if I'm not disturbing him, I say, if we like maybe catch eyes or look a little smile or something, I just take it from this and oh, such and such, and take it from there. I love your work and so forth. Take it from there, get the conversation flowing, and then that's it for me. But I think going back to what you said earlier about networking in every industry, I think is really crucial. And I've always learned to be a decent person to everyone, no matter their position in the company, whether it's a director or the cleaner, for instance. I don't care who you are, just be a decent person. Because going back to what we kind of said earlier about so making sure everyone's all right and so forth, you never know what someone might be going through or what they've had to do to get to that position. So I've just always learned to be a good, decent person to everyone. And people remember the people that have been good to them and being a decent person.
Whether they remember your name is irrelevant, but they
Yeah,
remember you or something that you did. Yeah.
exactly, because like you about yourself getting offered the MTV job, which is what I'll talk about in a moment. Actually, it's the person they remember, not so much the name, like you said, but they remember the person immediately. And if you give off a good vibe, if you take the time just to see how that person is, or ask
And it's
questions or
about
whatever,
respect.
yeah, it's
It's
about
about
respect.
respect.
It
And I
really
think that
is.
has to be earned. I think sometimes we don't realize it doesn't necessarily matter what you look like, but when you speak to somebody, how do you address them, or how, how do you look at them, and the energy that you share with them, I think is really, really important.
It really is important. That's how I was raised, to be respectful to everyone, and people remember you for doing that. Just taking that extra couple of seconds or minutes just to see how that person is, talk to them, get to learn about them as well, and just talk to them, because that's, like you mentioned earlier about the communication skills. That's what really is missing in today's kind of generation.
Do you think we need something like that for adults?
I think
Because
so.
we do a lot of that with children, and we do it in a we do it at home, and we also do it in the school, within the school environment. Do you think that there needs to be something similar for adults
Hmm.
who may not necessarily understand the importance of communication, and how to
Address people,
yeah.
maybe. Yeah, I definitely think so, because as you know, a lot of these kind of maybe workshops or classes, whatever they might be, they're catered to more, say, 16 to 25-year-olds, maybe, as you already
Well,
know.
that your life is over.
And exactly,
You're not there anymore.
life, really, life's just starting for you, because I've tried to make workshops in the I've done workshops obviously in the past through the orchestra and through my work as well for, say, teenagers and young adults. But like I definitely feel that we need to kind of talk to people above that age, because say you want to change business or change careers, say at the age of 30 or 40, whatever it might be, but they don't know where to start or begin. Sometimes people at that age who are a little bit further in life, they kind of get embarrassed to ask questions, don't they?
You're expected to know the answers or know
Exa-
what to do. But you realize that when you're talking about young people, we shouldn't necessarily be referring to 25-year-olds as young people, because there
Mm,
are 30-year-olds who are still in that category too.
yeah,
But because there's only funding available for that certain age range, or the criteria specifically for that age range, these other young people who are, younger adults, get lost in the mix or within the system. And if anything, they need more support at
they
that
really
stage
do.
their life. And it's the same. Imagine if you're moving out of home. You've
Hmm.
never paid a bill in your life. You've never paid rent. You don't know what to expect, and you move out, and you have a lump sum of money. You're eating takeaways. You're buying every game for your PlayStation or whatever, or buying anything that you want, not necessarily thinking about, actually, I have to pay my bills. I have to pay my rent.
Hmm.
I've got other things I need to consider. Those people are in debt. Those young, even kids, young people who are going off to university, parents think that they're doing them a favor by just giving them money,
Mm.
or allowing them to just, manage their debt. It's not that easy. I know so many young people who've either attempted suicide because of debt, who are in extreme debt now, but are so ashamed to discuss it with their parents. And even just with credit cards, forget going to university, just in general, managing money and finances isn't taught at a young age. And I think anything within, whether it's language or other, subjects that you're studying, we need to be talking about finances too.
Of course.
Have the conversation around managing money.
Yeah, I think that I was told recently that the reason why they don't talk to young kids about finances is because they want to kind of control everyone, and for the future, like, be in debt for the rest of your life and so forth. And we, like you just said, we need to teach young people, young adults, no matter what age, actually, about finances. And like you said,
Piggy bank. Did you have a piggy bank when you were little?
I did actually. I still got my own piggy bank now, actually.
You,
But
how did you get money to put in your piggy bank?
so I used to work. I used to, like, do paper rounds, to working in shops, and work with my parents as well. I learned.
How old were you when you started your first job?
Uh, so I think I did a paper round during secondary school, so I was about 11 or 12. I did that for a short while. But also I worked with my parents for a good few years, every now and then, from the age of 14 to 15, just helping out, doing little bits here and there. And I was in year 10, we did obviously what's it called again? Work experience, obviously, during year 10. So about 15 there. But I learned by also watching my parents as well, because they're a huge inspiration to me. And to see, obviously, a lot of kids don't always appreciate how
But
much
parents
work.
don't talk to their children.
They
That's why.
don't. They don't talk to their kids, and they don't appreciate how much
The
work
value
it
of
is,
money.
that the value of money. They think, oh, I've got 40 quid now, just go and buy a brand new game, like you said, or a brand new trainers or whatever. But I was always the type of person that would always appreciate money from a young age. I always said to a good friend of mine actually recently, I feel like I'm like an older person in the young person's body because I appreciate like sitting at home reading a book or learning or appreciating money. I don't go out and splurge like 200, 300, 400 quid in the club or the
Because
newest
you
garment.
it's easily done if you're drinking alcohol.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Spend money so easily.
Yeah. And I've always been the type of person to invest, to like work hard, save that money, but then invest that money, say a business or myself or whatever it might be. So for the future, I've got, say, X amount saved money. I've got money saved. And going back to what we said about teaching young people about finance, and in fact, anyone at age, I think it's really crucial that we
How
get
do you
rid of.
see that happening? How do you see that happening?
I was
What
gonna,
do
I was going to ask you actually the same sort of question. If you're, I swear to God, because
I've had this conversation with my nieces, trust me.
yeah,
But do you know what it is? I think so. When we were growing up, I asked you about the piggy bank because I
Mm,
had a piggy bank. Both my parents worked, and there were times when, if we wanted something, my dad was like, "Okay, you have a piggy bank. I'm going to give you money. Save it,
mhm.
so you can contribute to what you
Yeah,
want, rather than me buying it for you." And what's changed now is, and I see this with my nieces and nephews. My brothers do this all the time, and it's like when you want something, our kids don't save for it. They say, "I need this," and the parent goes and gets it. And it's not just my siblings; it's us across the board. So people our age, parents, uncles, aunties, grandparents do this all the time. When a child wants something, they say, "Oh, my baby wants something. Let me just get it."
yeah,
But you don't understand how hard you've actually worked to earn that money or save that money for you to spend it on them. And I think one of the conversations I have with the kids is, why do you think you deserve to have something?
hmm
And my niece is like, "Oh well, because I'm great at what I do." What do you do? I said,
yeah,
"You don't do chores, you don't do any washing, you don't, you don't cook food for anybody, you go to school, you sleep, you eat, you bathe, and back again."
yeah,
She's like, "Oh, you're so rude, you're so mean." I was like, "No, I'm being realistic. If we're talking about putting in work, what does that look like? You had a job when you were little. Even then, if your parents were working, young people at that point, even now you've got young carers who don't get paid for their work. Nobody necessarily highlights the work that they put in and the support that they need. So I think for me, it's really teaching children that there are young people the same age as them who have responsibility. It's about responsibility and
it really
understanding
is.
that you have to contribute something somewhere or somehow, but that needs to be taught. And the same applies to, whether it's learning how to basic life skills, so learning how to cook, wash, iron.
Mm.
Your mom is not responsible for those.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
So it's just, yeah, basic life skills alongside money management, I think has to start at a very young age.
it really
But it's
does.
also, yeah, it's also how we're raising our children and raising each other as well, because as adults, there's so much that we learn along the way as well.
Yeah, it's so true what you said about everything because we've been saying that for years with me and my family actually that we need to teach young kids
Where your
about.
family from?
Well, we were born and raised here, but I'm Greek Cypriot, so we have that kind of that sort of Greek mentality of just working hard to get what you wanted, and nothing come. And my family told us from the beginning, say, you want something, work for it. I mean, thank God they've looked after us so well over the years, and they've taught us so much. At the same time, they've
Elders. Do you have elders in your family?
yes, we do, yeah, and
The importance of having elders present
mm,
around you and learning, just gaining wisdom from them as well, I think is also missing for us.
it really is, and
Don't sit down with our grandparents, do we?
yeah, no, it's true,
My
and
grandparents are around, but yeah, most people don't necessarily, yeah, sit
yeah,
down with grandparents.
it's so true, and I've always learned so much from my elders, with my parents and my grandparents, and they've instilled that wisdom into me, saying life is not easy, and if you
Mhm.
want to go and get what you want, you can definitely do it. You definitely have the talent to do it. You just need to work, and the older you get, the more, even more I appreciate what life is all about. It's not hard. It's not easy. Sorry, I want to say it's bloody difficult, and you need to put in that work to get to where you want in life. So I was
Do you,
lucky.
do you think we should share the good stuff as well as the bad stuff?
100% because life is not all like full of golden geeses everywhere. It's not a bright sunny life. I mean, people go through bullshit every day, and people just see the kind of the final product, don't they? It's like that iceberg effect, isn't it? You see the tip of the success, what you must have seen the
Who knows
picture.
how much work you've actually put in to be there in the first place.
Yeah, and I put up a picture a while ago on my Instagram. But like the tip of the iceberg is the success, the money, the cars, the fame, whatever you think is success. That's what the tip is. Underneath it, under the water, is the heartbreak, the rejections, late nights, no sleep, not going out to see your friends and family. That sacrifice they had to give up to do what you wanted in life, and I think we definitely need to share the kind of bad stuff with the good. It makes I feel the success is sweeter because if people think what we do is really easy, yeah, we've done amazing stuff in our life, but you don't know what we've had to do to get to that position. And people, I think, as well now going back to what you said again about the communication skills, where um, people get jealous quite kind of quick. I feel people get jealous now, especially with social media like Instagram or Twitter, whatever it might be. People like putting like, look at my brand new six pack, look at my legs, look at my this, like, and then but behind the scenes, like, this is
You
bullshit.
have no
What the
idea.
fuck? You have no idea, man. I think
Georgie, do you know what a bad eye is? Do you know what it means?
is that I know what an evil eye is, but I don't know what a
Evil eye,
bad eye
bad
is.
eye,
Yeah,
similar thing.
yeah,
So across different cultures, we talk about being humble and just recognizing that everything doesn't need to be shared,
yeah.
especially with people that you don't know. But one of the things that my grandmother always used to say, it's always people that you know that care about you or love you
Hmm.
that can give you an evil eye too, because it's not out of hatred or disrespect.
Hmm.
It's oh my God, I'm so proud of you. Yet I don't know how to tell you,
Yeah,
because we don't taught how to celebrate our wins.
yeah.
Pictures, we show it on our social media, but we don't necessarily have the words to say,
Mm,
I've actually put in a lot of work. I'm really proud of myself
yeah.
for doing what I do or how I've done it. And I think that's where it needs to end. It needs to be the visuals as well as the language that we're using for ourselves connecting
Mm,
together rather than two separate things. I think recognizing that actually we can be great and there's absolutely no reason for us not to share it,
hmm.
but how we're sharing it, I think, is really, really important to recognize.
It's really important because it's so true what you said about the people closest to you that can give you that bad eye.
But
And
it's when we talk about it, though,
I
isn't
know,
it? I'm not even that, but
yeah,
these things exist.
they do exist, and I honestly don't know why they exist because you think they're like family to you, that they're the ones giving you the bad eye. And going back to what we kind of said about saying no to things and how to learn, I've learned sometimes the hard ways as well about who to trust as well in the industry. I've kind of been lucky in the sense that I've been lucky enough to kind of sense when someone's kind of BSing me or not really there for me.
Do you pick up on energy? What is it?
Yeah, pick up the energy. I've been lucky enough to I can sense energy straight away of those that like who say they're there on the surface, not really there. They're wishing you bad energy and bad luck. And I've just learned to obviously
Step
see it,
away.
step away straight away. If they're causing me trouble, cut them off. I've learned to kind of be not heartless, but kind of heartless in the sense where if you're giving me bad energy, bad eye, like you just said, or anything else that's not going to benefit either of us, I don't
Let
want
me.
to know you. Like, get away from my life. And that's why
Do you say it or do you just leave? How do you do it?
I
Because
just,
I think sometimes people need to be shown and given an example
yeah,
of how to do that.
it depends on the situation. I've done both. But I've just learned to like cut people off. And if they come back to you saying, "Oh, why'd you do this to me, man? Like, why'd you do that?" Like, you basically, I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, you messed me up, man. And like you said, people do need to know these kind of things as well. I've let them know. I say, you basically screw me over about this. You're always negative. You're always this. You're always saying bad things about that person or this. And we ain't got time for
I don't
them.
think people recognize that or even realize that they do it because they're so used to doing it with
Yeah,
everybody and to everyone.
it's so true. And I've learned to be tough in that situation where, like you said, people do need to know and they don't always realize that they're doing it until they're told. And sometimes karma comes around and smacks them in the face. They're thinking, like this, you've done this, you've done this, you've done that. Like, oh wow, okay, they didn't realize that. Okay, that's why I cut you off. There we go. Like, oh
They didn't even remember that they did that in the first place.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess a perfect example would be you're working with somebody, you've
Mhm.
done a job for them, they haven't paid you.
Yeah.
You've sent your invoices and they haven't paid you,
Mm-hmm.
but they have the audacity to call you again
Yeah.
without paying the invoices. They have the audacity to call you again and say, by the way, I've got this job and it's free. Like, I don't
Yeah.
have it, but come and do it for free because it looked great on your CV. Like,
Yeah.
this is the perfect example to give. It looks great on your CV. Yeah, come and do the job for me. You know, I'll give you a reference. Now, realistically, anybody in their right mind, especially somebody who's trying to get into the industry, will jump at the opportunity. This is where young people and a lot of people, especially women, in my, I guess, experience, especially women, get taken advantage of because there's already, you know, when we talk about the gender pay gap, there's already a lot of issues around women doing great jobs and in senior positions yet not being paid their worth.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have younger women who want to come into the industry but haven't got the experience. This would be, I'm doing this for free, but nobody needs to know. I'm just doing it and it's a great job and it's a great brand to be attached to. And, you know, just a perfect example. Now, what happens is when you do that once, that same person knows that they can push another button and come back
Mm-hmm.
and expect that from you again. Now, I've been in the industry for a very long time. I can honestly say there are times when I have been approached like this, and I sit there and I have to give a piece, you know, I have to give the individual a piece of my mind. I'm like, you know what? I find it extremely disrespectful that you think it's okay to approach me. Not only do you not have a budget, but you're expecting me to do your job.
Yeah.
I'm just doing your job, but you're getting paid and I'm not. I said, please don't call me again. And I think
Yeah.
it's a lot to do with I respect myself enough to know what I'm worth. Men or women alike, I know what I'm worth. If you want me to come up, because I'm adding value to your work, I'm
Mm-hmm.
adding value to anything. As an individual, we need to recognize we add value,
Of
firstly.
course.
But when somebody approaches us, is having the confidence to say, actually, I am adding value. What are you giving to me in return? And if it's
Big
not
one.
money for my work, then it needs to be beneficial enough for me to say yes to it. And I think that's
Definitely.
something we have to, yeah, across the board, across different industries and sectors, we have to be taught. Definitely.
100%. And was that kind of hard for you to do that at the start, to say no to say no
I
to
never
certain
say
things?
no. I'm like you. We're friends.
Yeah.
I never say no to anybody.
Yeah.
I think I'm like a glue. So wherever I go, oh, I feel like I'm the glue. I bring people together. That's what I do, whether it's in my home, whether it's within the community, whether it's in the workspace. Everywhere I go, I don't have a lot of friends. I have great people in my life.
Me too.
I'm very private in that sense, as in, you know, I don't allow people within my home or within that sacred space. But when I meet somebody and I know that someone else should connect to them, first thing I do is instantly, oh my God, I met somebody, but I know somebody you should meet. I do that all the time. Now, within the workspace, if you do that, there's a charge for that, right? Because it's an introduction fee.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think about those things. And I think for a long time I didn't. But then it got to the point where I was managing projects that are, you know, across the globe. So you're introducing artists or you're introducing companies and brands to individuals. And it's like, actually, there's money to be made here. How do I say, this is my fee, this is my introduction fee, this is the production fee, this is what I'm gonna, you know, help you produce, and this is the additional fee for that. That happens over time. That really happens over time. And I think it's also telling your friends that this is what you demand.
Yeah.
Because your friends will make an introduction knowing that there's no money available for your work.
Mm-hmm.
And I think especially within the professional environment, within a professional environment, your friends also need to respect and value your work if they are going to.
100%.
And I think
Definitely.
that's something we need to make clear
Mm-hmm.
to our friends, because my friends all the time, they're introducing me to people, they're great people, and I'm like, okay, so you're introducing me for a project. Where's the budget? Like, what are we talking about?
Yeah.
So yeah, those things. And from now on, like anything that I do, especially if it's connected to professionals and a company or a brand, if it's not funded or there isn't a budget available, I'm clear from the beginning, it's your choice to get involved
Mm-hmm.
before you reply back to the email or before I make the introduction. But it's something I make very, very clear. But it's recognizing who those individuals are that are valuable and showing and telling people. If you see something in somebody, why would you not say to them, actually, you know, you're really great at this. You should think about. And yeah. And I think I feel like I do that with everybody. Like anybody I meet, anytime I meet somebody, I always say, so what do you do? And they're like, oh, well, but I work as a publicist. But what else do you do? Well, I play the violin or I write music. So why are you not teaching, you know, people had to play the violin. Oh, I never thought about that. Like
Yeah.
it's a really simple example,
Yeah.
but it works. And I think people don't see that in themselves, and often you're that person that sees it in them.
Yeah, it's so true. I was just thinking of that as well because people do sometimes need their eyes opening to what other things they're good at as well. And it takes that outside person to like, you're good at talking to people, or you're a good listener, or how about going down that avenue? And I think it's such a shame where you meet someone who is incredibly talented in so many different fields, but they can't see it. I've met people in my life where they might be doing, say, one job, for instance, doing good at it, but they can't see what else they're good at as well. Thinking, how about that? Doing
They
your own,
can't ask that. They
they
can't see
can't.
past it. They think that's their life. No, but
Oh,
it's a career or a job, isn't it?
yeah, like what do you think that could be down to? Is that, do you think that's because of maybe family making it go down one job, or friends saying you're only good at one thing, or
Limited beliefs.
hmm,
It's limited beliefs, and believing that you aren't worthy or you're not capable of doing other great things. Because I think I spoke to a young man yesterday. He's 27 years old. He's an engineer. He works for a construction company. He's a creative. He's a fantastic writer. He wants to become a singer-songwriter. He's been writing since he was 13.
wow,
Why he's not done anything with it, I don't know. So I've known him for a while. I mentored him a few years ago, but yesterday he called me and he was like, "There's something going on in my head. I can't figure it out." Okay, so when was the last time we wrote? It was about 8 months ago. So in this space of time, look what's happened. You
yeah,
know, people are at home, people have nothing to do. You're struggling to find peace within yourself. And I said, "What usually does that for you?" He goes, "Writing." "Why didn't you do it?" "Oh,
yeah,
I didn't think about that." But that's what heals. It's a healing process, is it not? He's like, "Oh yeah, yeah, it's true." But all this time, he's wanted to change his career. In the whole time I've known him, he's wanted to change his career, but didn't feel like he had the courage or the confidence to tell his parents,
mm,
"I'm actually changing an industry. I don't know whether I'm going to get paid. I'm actually really talented, but you're gonna," and you have to look at it from a cultural and faith perspective as well.
mm,
Within certain homes, there are expectations of children and young people from their parents. My parents have invested in me, in my education. They've raised me. They pay for everything. I can't let them down.
mm-hmm,
You've got adults who, young people who are growing into adults who are now, maybe mid-20s, 30s, maybe even 40s, who are just realizing, I've lived my whole life as a lie. This is not
yeah,
who I am.
yeah,
So I don't know. I just think I connect. I've recently connected with lots of people like that, especially men of
mm,
color. So many men who are now at that point where I've been alone in my house through lockdown, and it's been scary because I've realized who I am.
mm,
I, and I haven't said it out loud. This is the first time I've said it out loud, and I'm scared. And I've sat here and I've cried. I've never cried in my life. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
So there's so many different emotions. It's allowing people to not only be themselves but also be seen. I see you. How can I help you? I
yeah.
think that we need to start doing, most definitely.
Most definitely. And talk about like kind of the issue with the men about like not crying before. I mean, I was talking to a good friend of mine on the podcast a few episodes back, Aaron Roach Bridgman, a really good
Mhm.
friend of mine who obviously is a documentary maker, TV host, presenter, super lovely guy. And we're both talking about men not being able to come out with their emotions or talk about the stresses that they might be going through because men kind of have been portrayed or having this image of toughness or not showing their emotions. And I can't lie. I've
In control is how it would be.
yeah, yeah. And they're scared to show other people that yes, they can cry as well. They might show the kind of this tough exterior, this toughest shell. They're keeping everything in control. But yes, we have emotions too. And when I see like jokes about like men don't have emotions, of course we bloody got emotions. We're just like you.
But we've created a culture and environment where men aren't allowed to be vulnerable. That
Yeah.
it kind of boils down to that, does it not? No matter what age you are,
Mm,
unless you go through. So, for example, you've lost your father or you've lost somebody who's so dear to you, but because you're holding everybody else up, you can't possibly, become weak, or
mm.
you can't possibly show that you're sad. What happens? That sits here, right? That
It
sits
does
here.
right
That's
here. Yeah.
here. And
Mm,
then when it explodes around or to the people who care about you the most.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's why a lot of people like maybe they might go to things like drink or drugs because they can't show their emotions. I mean, I know we're slowly
How
coming
many
back.
people do we know that smoke weed
So there we
just
go.
to clear your head? It's like you know the high is for a limited amount of time, and then what happens next?
Mm. I think
You're
this
again connected to your emotions, or you're not. Like they're not going
it's true. Like, I just been brought up to like, get things off my chest because there's nothing better than getting things off your chest. I mean,
How do you do that? Who do you do that to? What do you
like
do?
family and friends. If I've got struggles going in my life, I talk about it. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if it's
But
on
what
your,
about the people who don't have somebody to talk to? What do you recommend for them? Because that's where,
that's why I've always said to all my friends and family, so, look, if you need to talk about something, I am here. If you want to talk, don't be embarrassed to call me. If you're stressing out, and that's why going back to what we said earlier about kind of sensing other people's kind of energies and stuff. I can sense when someone is not their usual self. If I know they're like normally like a bright person or energetic or happy, but then suddenly they're kind of like in the distance like this, like thinking of something.
you just stepped. Yeah.
Yeah, I take that minute just to like either put them to the side or like a little hug and saying, "Is everything all right?" And then they say, "Yeah, everything's fine. Don't worry about it. It's fine." But I can sense
You can
something.
tell. You can
They
tell
can
this.
tell, and that's like, no. I said, "No, really, are you all right?" And then that's when they kind of like, they call me like later or text me to like, such and such has happened, and there we go. And then they feel much better. But going back to what you said earlier about the podcasting thing as well, just talk about it here, like we are now, just as two friends, just talking about things. It just feels so much better. You get so many things off your chest as well. And people shouldn't be embarrassed to talk about how they're feeling. Like if you're feeling like shit for whatever reason it might be, it could be the biggest thing, could be the smallest thing. As long as you talk about,
We often think that something that's major in our life has no value in anyone else's.
mm,
But it's amazing how when you speak up and speak out, how many people it connects to on so
yeah,
many different levels. And
so
a lot of
true.
it is about kindness, isn't it? Like,
Yeah,
how can we be more kind to each other,
yeah.
um, and let people just be? There was a young man I met a few years ago, and he was excluded from school for smoking, and he ended up in a Peru. And when I met him, it was a lot later, and he left the Peru with 11 GCSE. So this kid was smart. He
Wow.
wanted to study engineering, and he was really, really smart. When I met him, he had a daughter, and I don't know what it is, but I spend a lot of time with young boys who just come and sit and talk to me, and that it
Mm,
happens all the time. And there was a group of young boys sitting with me, and he came and sat down. And he was like, "Oh, so what are you talking about? Like, why are these boys sitting talking to you?" And then I just said to him, I said, "How are you? Tell me about you. You know, what are you doing here?" And it was a careers event that I was at. I was hosting a table at a careers event, and he came and sat down, and he's like, "So what do you do?" And I said, "Don't worry about me. I want to know what you do."
mm,
And he told me his story. He was like, "I was in a Peru. I got 11 GCSEs, and I wanted to be an engineer." And then he goes, "I had my daughter, and the only thing I could think about was I wish there was a man in my life who could tell me how to be a great man, who could
mm,
tell me how to love and care for my daughter, who can, just teach me basic things like how to listen,
mm,
how to care for people, how I should look after myself on a physical, emotional, and mental level. What do I need to know to be a healthy young man?" And when I was sitting there looking at this man, all I wanted to do was hug him, because these are simple things that we take, many of us take for granted because we have family around. But for those who don't, it's like, I don't have anybody. How do I ask?
mm.
Who can I go and ask? But where do you go? Where do we have these conversations? Do you not notice how whenever we promote something about young people, or if there's anything online about young people, it's often negative?
Mm. It's so
Now,
true.
why are we not even talking about
Yeah.
all the great things young people are doing, especially young men are doing? All the great things that young men are accomplishing. And if we're talking about education, there's a lot of young people outside of education that are doing some fantastic things. I think Stormzy is a perfect example of greatness. Not only him, but his whole team are just beautiful, beautiful human beings. Everything he attracts, whoever he attracts, is just beautiful. And he shares that with the world. And you must be blind not to even feel it.
So
You,
true.
he's one of those people. You don't have to know him to feel his beauty. And I think young people, young men especially, have been missing that for a long time. And to have that and see that within somebody like themselves, a young person like themselves, is absolutely necessary. And we need to be celebrating young people more than we have been, because we obviously haven't.
It's so true. I mean, I get so upset when every day you hear about knife crime happening, a new stabbing, somebody being killed by knife again, thinking, again, that every single day this is,
Yeah.
every single day. And that breaks my heart thinking, all you hear is knife crime. You never hear any positive stuff, or very rarely anyway. But what you do hear is knife crime or an attack
And
somewhere.
you know what we don't talk about? We talk about somebody dying or being hurt. We don't talk about the families. We don't
Mm.
talk about the impact. Oh my God, my doorbell's ringing.
That's all right. I'll pause it for 2 seconds. It's fine. Of course you can. I just paused the podcast. It's
Okay, give me
fine.
1 second. I'm coming
It's
back.
okay.
Okay, one
No
sec.
worries.
What were we talking about? I've forgotten.
Yeah, about attacks, knife crime, and so
Oh,
forth.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So, my younger brother was stabbed on a bus about 5 minutes away from my home
No way.
about 15 years ago. And it was 7:30 in the evening. Bus was packed. Nobody did anything. They got him off the bus. There were 30 young men involved.
30.
30. They stabbed him 13 times.
Jesus.
Like he has no, like, so they cut him open basically, left him for dead. And somebody who was gone, who was definitely an angel in disguise, I would say, found him, got him to the hospital. And even though he was bleeding, he remembered my younger brother's number. So they called us to tell us that, he's been hurt, he's in hospital. We got there half an hour, 40 minutes later, I didn't even recognize him. His head was like there was so much
Wow.
bleeding. Yeah, it was. I've never seen anything like it in my life. Yes, I've worked with young people before. Yes, I've worked with young people involved in crime before, but nothing like personally experiencing something like this. And they found out he was alive, and they came back to finish him off at the hospital. This is how.
Oh my God.
This is what we're talking about. This is like no understanding of the impact of what I'm doing as a young person and how it affects not just the young person I'm hurting, but also everybody connected to that young person as well. My brother was in a coma for a very, very long time.
Really?
Suffered a heart attack.
Oh my
He's lost.
God.
Like they just said to us, he's had brain damage. He's not going to make it. I was sitting with him when he opened his eyes, and this fool, the first thing he asked for was a cigarette. Honestly, I sat there. I wanted to cry. I wanted to beat him, but I was like, "Oh my God, you're breathing." But just the impact of what had happened to him, for me personally, it was like an awakening of sorts. It's like you've experienced this firsthand. What are you personally going to do to work with young people who are in a similar position? And for the past, I guess, 15 years, I've been working with young people. So in the capacity of, I guess, booking artists to come and talk about this at schools, taking artists and people in the industry into schools, specifically talking about trauma, talking about other opportunities and things that we should encourage young people to pursue. But one of the things that every young person has said is every time somebody gets stabbed or somebody gets hurt or shot or gets killed, our schools do not want to talk about it.
Mm.
It comes, they mention it in an assembly, but nobody asks us how we're doing.
Yeah.
That's a culture we have to change. We have to allow our young people to talk about this stuff, because when you're constantly experiencing trauma, the impact of that is, I'm desensitized. Like this doesn't affect me at all. There's no emotion. So those same young people are out here living their lives and are harmed or being harmful to others, but don't recognize that that's an issue. And it starts from a very young age. So a lot of our work, whatever industry we're in, somebody somewhere that we know has experienced trauma. How can we create spaces where we not only address it, but there is professional and holistic support available, whether that's young people within this setting, whether that's women who've been sexually assaulted or raped, or whether same applies to men too. It's just there are traumatic experiences in our life that we carry as a child that we don't just release until we have that support, or there's some kind of therapy available. And I think that's something that the arts and music has the capacity to manage and to do. And I think those partnerships are really, really important. That's what I've been doing over the past few years. And it's like you see it firsthand. You walk into a room, like for the past 2 years I've delivered this program, which is called The Formula, which I've created at a pupil referral unit, and it's just for girls.
I want to get into that. Yeah.
So it's 11 to 16-year-old girls, and there's a lot of programs for young boys, but within that setting, there isn't necessarily anything for girls. And I really wanted to take women who work across the music industry on, you know, large scale events and have partnership with some great people within the music industry into the school. And the first day was everybody just sitting there like this. Nobody talking, no, it's like screw faces, everyone.
Yeah.
But by the evening, one of the things, I always do a creative writing session on a Monday when I walk in, and it's like, talk to me about what love means to you. Talk to me about what emotion is. You know, how do you show people you care about them? And we do it in action, but to talk about it, many of us don't. And as adults, we don't know how to do. And by the end of that day, every single young person in that room, a young girl in that room, came up to me and said, "Thank you. We've never done this before." Now, this is just me doing this. Imagine as an industry or as a people, if we do this in every space that we're in, every interaction we have with a young person. You know, we talk about bus stops, people standing at bus stops.
Yeah.
So rude, oh my God, they won't give us a space. But it's also how we interact with them as well that makes a big difference. If you're looking at them like you want to fight them, or looking at them like, oh my God, you're so rude, oh, your parents didn't teach you well. Of course, children are going to pick up on that. I think, yeah, I think from that perspective, there's so much that young people are going through that we never went through on a daily basis. They don't talk about it.
They don't at all.
And they don't have anybody other than their peers to talk about it to either.
Mm. And what do you feel about kind of like the government, say, taking away things like music, like art schools and music schools, or giving them less things to do? How do you feel about that?
You know, yeah, one of the most beautiful things that I've discovered over the past few months about actually all of the young people that I know is all of us are creative in some way or another. It's how we express ourselves. So there are so many young people who are producing music at home, just on apps, or just, you know, just have an older brother or sister who's a musician or an artist and just working with them. But there's also those who don't have anywhere to go. And taking away those, I guess, resources and opportunities has been a challenge for many of those young people, especially if that's the only time they're coming out of their house as well. And if they're not doing that and they're coming out of their house, where are they going?
Exactly.
We talk about grooming and young people, you know, in gangs. How do those young people end up in those spaces? They don't choose to be there. Sometimes they meet somebody who entices them and it takes them in because they have nowhere else to go. And I think if there were opportunities, so you've got youth centers, and youth centers get given a lot of funding. I'm not going to name any names because I've seen a lot of funding going into them, and all they do is play snooker. Right? You're not teaching these young people any skills that they can apply anywhere in their lives. Why are you still open? Why are you still being funded? I think there's a bigger question around what needs to be taught or what young people need to learn, but ask the young people. Trust me, most of them want to work. They want to have the knowledge. They want to be able to create stuff and be able to do it by themselves at home. Every young person has a device of some sort. If you don't, it's because your parents can't afford it. But most young people have a smartphone. Most things, creative things you want to do, you can find an app for.
Of course you can.
Or you
easily.
Do you know what I mean? So
yeah.
That if a child doesn't know where they're meant to go or what's going on, how can they possibly do it? You can't expect a child to just know these things. So when we're looking at youth workers and especially outreach and engagement, we need to be looking at people who do informal outreach and engagement, not, you know, your typical youth worker who has a qualification. We need to be looking at other creative ways to engage young people, and that has a lot to do with arts and culture. People who make music. That I know so many people who'd love to do that work, but because they don't have a qualification, they can't get into a youth center. But you've got these elders who've been here for like 25, 30 years saying, no, come and play snooker. Come and learn how to write a CV. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Nobody cares.
Nobody cares. I mean, when you started Formula, I mean, how was that for you? Was it like a spark of the moment, or did you take the time to kind of,
you know, something? Sometimes you do things. You just do. It just doesn't have a name.
Yeah.
This was like the naming. The first event I did was in partnership with the Mayor of London.
Amazing.
They did a campaign called Sounds Like London, which was like a celebration of women in music. And I was one of the consultants on that. And I was like, there's no point being a consultant and introducing everybody else into this space and not doing something yourself. So that was like the first event that I did at MTV for 50 young women of color who wanted to work in the music industry. And I invited people from across the board. So you had somebody who was a director for Adidas, a global marketing director for Adidas. You had a DJ, you had a writer, you had somebody who toured with Rihanna, you know, like across the board. Anybody
Amazing.
and everybody within the music industry who young women should have met was on that panel. And it was just the beginning of something so beautiful. And I realized that within my network, there are amazing individuals, men and women, who want to work with young people, just don't know how. So I
Yeah.
think for me, like my focus moving forward is really just connecting the dots. And whether it's a setting like this, or whether it's in person. But for November and December, I really just want to, like, my focus is really about introducing great people to the young people that I know. And that's what we should all be doing. We're
100%.
all connected to some young person somewhere. Let's share something great with them and see the effect of that long term for them. But also, if something is beneficial for them, we do this all the time. If something's good for us and our soul, what do? We instantly go and talk about it.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I experienced something, or I met somebody. Oh my God, they're so amazing. You should know who they are. They're the people that we should be following online.
Hmm.
Because when you see something or you hear something, it instantly just kind of like warms your heart.
It does. It really does. And that's why I hugely admire what you've been doing for so long, because I feel like well, I don't feel like, I know that you're a huge inspiration, not just to me, but to so many other people. And I also want to say thank you for doing such an amazing job. Thank you.
You know something? I really believe that we are placed exactly where we need to be
Mm-hmm.
at exactly the right time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's recognizing it in yourself. Like, you have the power to recognize why you're here. And that's something that happens over time. I remember to be speaking to somebody a few weeks ago. And I was like, when I was 16 years old, I had a fight with somebody. There were 4 sisters. And I got stabbed in the head with a screwdriver. And I sat there and I was like, I just said that. But
What?
I wasn't that person who had a fight. I just got jumped. But being in that situation, it made me realize I'm not that kind of person. There are so many young people who aren't that kind of person, are just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
It's
And I
so
think,
true.
and it's the same for us as well, for many of us. You know, when you're surrounded by people who are dodgy,
Uh-huh.
if that's your environment, what happens? You become like your environment and the people that you're around. But if you take
Exactly.
one individual out of that environment, put them somewhere, you know, that is just like meditation and just breathing and just being in nature and just really like taking time out to just see the beauty in the world, however that may be. Yeah, it's something that you have to like sometimes often force yourselves into,
Mm-hmm.
or just step out of where you are and know that you want to change in your life, and this is the best way forward.
100%. I mean, how do you kind of deal with some moments that you feel might you get overwhelmed? Do you like meditate yourself, go for walks? You mentioned gardening as well earlier. What kind of things do you do to kind of help yourself, your mental state?
So last year I trained to become a meditation coach.
Oh, really?
And a lot of the practice was like, I sat there and I was like, oh my God, not it just felt really boring to me. So I have a park that I go to, and for me, it's really just allowing yourself to be one with your environment and being peaceful. And what we often do is, if there's a thought that we have, and often when it's negative, what happens? It just circulates in your head, doesn't it?
It does.
It sits there for a little while, you forget about it because you're distracted by something else, and you come back and it sits here, then it's over here. Do you know what I mean? So it's around your body, and wherever it goes, it causes you pain. And I was that person. I would carry other people's energy or other people's pain for a long time. And empaths do that. You know, you don't necessarily understand it, but you do that. And then it got to the point when I was actually, you know, you mentioned you were physically sick.
Mm-hmm.
I got physically sick. And I don't get sick. And that was a wake up call for me. That was a few years ago. And I sat there and I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be this person anymore.
Yeah.
Now, if I don't answer your phone call, if I don't reply to your email, if I don't reply to your text, it's nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
I make it very clear, it's about me.
Mm-hmm.
I need to be in the right frame of mind to look after myself first. I'm a priority.
Mm-hmm.
And then I do everything else. And I think if I'd said that to my mum years ago, my mum would be like, how dare you speak to me like, who do you think you are? My mum does this all the time. She calls me. She's like, why are you not answering your phone? Because I don't want to talk. What do you mean you don't want to talk to me? We're having dinner. Come and have breakfast with us. No. And in my parents' house, it's noise. There's 17 of us in total, mashallah. And it's like when everyone gets together, and that's including grandchildren, everyone gets together. It's like, it's wild. You can't even hear yourself think. So while everyone's eating, I'm like this. I have my plate in front of me. And my mum was like, "Are you not going to talk?" And I'm like, "I am going to talk, but it's too much." So when I come home, yeah, I like to sit in silence, even if it's for hours by myself.
Mm.
That's brought me so much joy. And especially when you work in the music industry, you are around music all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Not all of it is good music.
Yeah.
Not all of it needs to be
True.
played. Do you know what I mean? Because you end
Uh-huh.
up singing some of this trash and you're like, oh my God, why am I singing this? It's disgusting. So yeah, I think it's finding a balance with
Mm-hmm.
everything we do, but finding out who you are. We don't take out enough time to find out who we are and what we enjoy. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the same as everybody else. But like over time, I have built friendships with some amazing human beings. We don't speak to each other every day, and they're across the globe. But when we connect, it's like it's just fireworks. And
Yeah.
in those friendships, no matter where you are, I hope that we can all be in a place where we experience something like that, because it's such a joy. And it's, people you work with. Like 3 of my friends who used to work at MTV many, many years ago, I haven't seen them in a few years. They've all had babies. They all sent me a text message saying, "Oh, by the way, just wanted to share my good news, just so you know I've had a baby." And it's like, thank you. This is exactly, do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
knowing who to share your good news with is just, yeah, it's beautiful. And people respect, like, loving you enough for them to share it with you. I think it's really important.
It
Yeah,
really is.
and I feel like you're extremely blessed. You're in an extremely blessed place in life when you learn to appreciate even the smallest, yeah, things.
Mm.
And I definitely feel like I'm in that space.
I'm so glad to hear that, honestly. And you know what?
I'm gonna start meditating.
No, I'll leave you to it then. But I could honestly, I could talk to you forever. But I think I love to finish on a really lovely, positive note like that. So I just want to take the time to say, obviously, thank you so much for being part of the podcast today. It was so lovely to catch up with you. And how can people find you just in case? I know you want to. How can people find you just in case
Not
online?
funny, no.
Don't find me. I'm like,
So I'm on all across my social media. My name is Arfa, ARFABUTT. So whether it's LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, I don't use Twitter. I'm on there though. Yeah, and Facebook. Yeah, it's all the same. So I
oh,
can't.
brilliant.
And you know what? If anyone has any questions or just want to share something lovely, please feel free to message me as well. I will reply. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Georgio. I appreciate you.
No, it's my absolute pleasure. My absolute pleasure. Appreciate you as well. And thank you so much. It's so lovely to catch up with you and talk. And that's the end of the episode, everyone. Take care, everyone. Bye bye.
Take care.
Thank
Bye.
you.